you're pulling out my heartstrings because that's why I got into this.
Yeah.
I love the term algorithmic retailing, and I think that the opportunities in merchandising over the next decade to use body data to really flip the model and be a much more consumer-centric industry, where instead of creating products and hoping that consumers fit in them, we're actually creating products because we understand what the customer looks like.
Welcome to Clothing Culture, a fashion industry podcast at the intersection of technology and innovation. I'm Emily Lane.
And I'm Brett Schnittker. We speak with experts and disruptors who are moving the industry forward and discuss solutions to real industry challenges.
Clothing Culture is produced by Stars Design Group, a global design and production house with more than 30 years of experience. Welcome back to another episode of Clothing Culture. Today, we are talking about one of the biggest problems that retailers face: returns. Returns have great impact on business. It affects customer satisfaction. It also reduces that bottom line profitability in a big way. There are some wonderful technology innovations underway that are available that can really help improve this overall situation for retailers. So we brought an expert, Whitney Cathcart, to talk more about some of this new amazing technology that's available that really helps add transparency behind, honestly, one of the top causes for returns: fit. Whitney, welcome to our show.
Emily, Brett, great to see you today. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here and talk about a topic that is important to the industry and important to me.
Well, you definitely have some strong credits behind you. I really I applaud you for being known as one of the top women in IT. You were just recently awarded Women in IT Award in 2022. You're one of the top 6 women to watch in fashion technology by Inside Retail. Your accolades go on and on. So congratulations.
Nobel Peace Prize is going to be nice, because I know there's so much ferocity over fit. It's kind of amazing. We met, time flies, holy smoke. Mm-hmm. We met with the Ukrainian event in September, New York Fashion Week, I think, right. 3 months ago. Mm. Seems like it was just yesterday. And there were these 2 fireflies that lit up the room. And I'd say it's you, Whitney, and Deb. And we've had Deb on there. And I was shocked at the energy that you guys just emanated in that room. And I think both of you have a lot of reason to have that great energy. You guys are you've got a tiger by the tail with your organization. And as Emily has kind of talked about, returns and exchanges, we've talked a lot about these things on episodes because it's a lightning rod for the industry. As Em mentioned, I think the industry is talking between 20 and 40% returns and exchanges online. We see continued growth online. It's a huge issue, and AI and AR are weighing in. I always like to say adversity breeds technology, great minds come up with solutions for challenges. And so we talked a little bit about, I'd like to hear a little bit about kind of an overview of 3D look, and then what other solutions do you think weigh in, with 3D's benefit to our industry in addition to those certainly big glaring issues?
Yeah, I mean, fit certainly over the last couple of years has moved to the forefront of, problems within the industry and really negatively impact P&L and profit. So it's been interesting to watch. We're 6.5 years old now, and it's been interesting just in conversations with brands and retailers how they have just organically changed over the last certainly 5 years, and particularly since post-COVID, with so much more retail happening online. And, those numbers, as you said, Brett, are just going to increase as we have, greater buying power coming in with Gen Z, and having a super digital generation, coming in. So essentially what we do is, to keep it really simple, is we actually measure the human body from two photos that are taken on a smartphone. And we actually build a 3D model from those two photos. And from that 3D model, we compute over 86 points of measurement. And we use those measurements in the basis of our fit and size recommendation engine. And we use that 3D model in our virtual try-on technology. And our product, Your Fit, is the product for e-commerce. It is embedded on a e-commerce page on a PDP. And a consumer simply taps into our virtual fit widget. It opens right up into a simple scanning experience. They take a front and a side photo of themselves in tight fitted clothing. And on our back end, we are actually mapping all of that data that we get from the scan. So body shape data, a lot of measurements, height, weight. So we're computing BMI. And we map it to the way a brand is fitting. And we deliver a size recommendation and this experience of being able to see what the product looks like on you. And so the end, what we're doing is for the consumers, we're helping them to understand what size they should be buying in that brand, in that specific product. And then also we're giving them that experience of seeing what it looks like on them. So we are essentially answering the two big questions that we all face when we're shopping online, which is, I wonder what size I should be buying, and I wonder what this is going to look like on me. And certainly the implications for retail are removing or decreasing return rates. If we could remove them altogether, I think we'd be a unicorn already.
Yeah, for sure.
But, trying to reduce that habit that, we see, about 50% of consumers are buying more than one size, and they're using their bedrooms as their dressing rooms, as I so often say, and then they're returning what doesn't fit. And there's a real implication to the brand and also to the consumer, because let's face it, returning is a pain in the neck.
It is. They don't make it easy. And nowadays, we were just talking a little earlier that certain brands are restricting the whole bracketing issue. They're really eliminating that. That affects the consumer behavior in terms of risking a new brand that they haven't fit into, or, so I think this becomes even more important.
Absolutely.
Yes. Absolutely.
Whitney, you co-founded 3D Look, and initially, starting in 2016, you went through a big research phase and then launched in beta in 2019. I'm curious to learn a little bit about what were some of the most surprising discoveries that you found during this research phase.
Yeah, so when I was looking at research, I'd actually stepped out of being on the, manufacturing side of the fashion industry, where I'd spent about 30 years. And
good for you. If you can get out, try. Right.
I did. I just honestly, I was super burnt out, and I was really frustrated with the lack of kind of innovation. I lived in San Francisco. I was surrounded by innovation. Of course, this is pre-COVID years. And, every night in San Francisco, you could attend multiple different events on immersive technologies. I was super interested in AR, VR, XR, so kind of mixing both the worlds together. I was really interested in AI and kind of what types of AI technologies were going to really move our industry forward. And I knew I wanted to be part of all of that. And so I started a consulting company, and I took on some clients in the AR and VR space, and I took on some clients in the AI space, and I took courses at MIT. I am not a computer scientist, as my tech team will share with you. I've got one of my co-founders is our chief science officer, and he's got a PhD, and he's very used to my late night calls where I'm saying, can you explain this to me in like simple layman's terms? But I got myself dangerous enough to know more than, I would say most, retail CEOs. And I think, what was really surprising to me as I was looking at kind of the ecosystem across the fashion industry. So when I say that, what I mean by that is thinking about, inception of a garment, so design, and what were the tools that were available to designers in a much more digital way versus kind of the analog way I had grown up in the industry, all the way through to, distribution. And, back then I was attending events where, I was looking at drones and distribution centers and robots that would be, delivering things to people. And on the streets of San Francisco, you could see these things. And one of the things I knew from spending 30 years in manufacturing was just how hard fit was. And for me, one of the things that got me really interested was understanding how much more we were doing on our mobile devices. Even back in 2016, social was certainly pervasive. I think it hadn't really done as much destruction to retail as, you could argue, go back and look at today in terms of disruption there. But I had, teenagers, and everything was being done on mobile devices.
Right.
And so for me, as you think about, okay, well, we're going to start to buy more on devices. I mean, it was just logical to me that, as more of the digital generation became into buying power, that we would shop more and more in our devices, and therefore fit was going to become much more critical. And so I did a lot of research. I spent about 6 months, and this is pre-3D look. They were about 6 to 8 months old, I think, when I met them. And I was talking to CEOs and, who were trying to, get into this space back in 2016 around the globe. And I came across 3D Look, and my now co-founder was out in San Francisco, and we met, and I really loved what we were doing, what he was doing back then. And it was really about intersecting mobile computing and 3D. And this idea that we could create a human body from 2 photos, we could create a 3D model, and we could collect measurements. We could, essentially compute measurements from that 3D model. And I remember looking at him and saying, do you have any understanding of if you can actually get this accurate? Because, of course, back then it was a very clunky MVP. But I said, if you could get this accurate, do you have any understanding of the implications of body data within the supply chain? Because for me, that's where I'd spent my life. And, he was an entrepreneur. He didn't come out of fashion and retail. But I saw immediately a data play, because we as merchants had never had access to the body data of our customers. And from a merchant perspective, it made all the sense in the world to design products based on segmentation of your customers. But if you don't have that, you can't do that, which is why, back in the day, we'd go into stores, not that we don't today, but much more so several years ago, we'd go into stores, love something on a rack, grab 3 sizes and go into the fitting room. So what got me very curious and interested was, how are you replicating that in-store experience online? And then
because I think a lot of them really aren't built the same. For a lot of consumers, this is sort of a new technology. You talk like you've been in this for about 6 years. I think the average consumer feels like it's new.
Yes.
There's been, early innovators and early adopters. I resemble that remark. I always chase it. And I've had a little experience in the early programs that, AR, augmented reality, would provide you on social media or Snapchat or whatever. Clearly, not all of these kind of innovations are created equal. Yeah. So when you're, obviously within your studies and comparing and contrasting what's out there in the market, and some of us have had that experience, the amazing differences between different programs. What do you see as pitfalls, that are in this nascent technology space when it comes to fit?
Yeah, I think you make a really important point, and I try and stop, every now and then and go, okay, I've been living in the future for like 10 years.
Right.
When I walk on the streets.
Do you have the Powerball numbers for tomorrow? Since you're living in the future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I walk on the streets, or even when I'm talking to my own kids, and, they're like mid-20s now, so they're really the top of that kind of that Gen Z generation. But, what seems really obvious to me isn't just obvious to consumers. And, camera adoption to getting better fitting clothing is not pervasive yet. And I think for us, that's been a huge learning experience. However, we are a camera-based company, and technology moves forward, not backward. So if you think about, you know, how many how many consumers are comfortable with cameras today versus even 3 to 5 years ago, it's astounding. You think about kind of what's happened in social, right? Snap is a camera company. Snap has acquired a couple of companies over the last 24 months in the virtual fit space. And, there are several big retailers that are experimenting with kind of, AR filters and fit. But we think about where we do most of our shopping, right? It's on
Our
Instagram,
phones.
Yeah.
right?
On
And it's
Instagram.
really, Instagram's made it easy, right? They show me beautiful new brands every day. And a lot of it is, I could shop directly from Instagram, but that doesn't solve the fit problem. So I think for us, the adoption to camera has really been in around the education, not even just from us to a brand, but really about what is the brand doing to educate the consumer. So our customer success team works really closely with our customers, and they create Your Fit pages on their websites, which are really helping to educate the consumer about the negative implications of returns. And when I say negative implications, it's a negative implication to a consumer because it's a pain in the neck.
Yep.
Particularly if you're like in a crunch and you need something and you're not even going to have time to return it. So it's really a disappointment to get a product that you think you're going to love and wear and have it not fit. It's a negative impact to the brand because those products, when they come back, often never even make it back on the shelves, right? So they're going straight into the landfill, or they're being discounted, right? So the already marked down garment is taking a deeper markdown. So implications there on profits, I don't even have to explain to you. And then the third piece of it is the negative implications to environment. And, Gen Z, which is, I think, about $365 billion worth of shopping power, who their number one entertainment choice is actually fashion. So, if you think about...
That's an astounding number, by the way.
It's an astounding number.
Yeah.
It's an astounding number, right? And this generation cares more about sustainability than any preceding generation. Not our generation, not the generation behind us, millennials. And so as more and more of these Gen Zs are coming into buying power, that expectation to truly be operating sustainability needs to be authentic, right? So if you're buying, making leather out of mushrooms or whatever it might be, that's one component of sustainability, which is great. And if that's kind of authentically your mission, that's amazing. But if you're taking back 30, 40, 50% of it, you cannot call yourself a sustainable operation. So all of these different pieces need to line up. And, I think that education piece has been really important. And I think adoption to any type of camera-based technologies over the next decade will become pervasive, and fit tech will become table stakes technology. I mean, can you honestly imagine that a couple of years from now, we're going to go shopping on websites and go, I wonder what size to buy, and I wonder what that looks like on me?
No, I cannot, because it's already frustrating.
Yeah. You talk about pervasive technology, and certainly one of the key concerns that the industry is faced with right now, and consumers are concerned with, is data privacy issues. Right. You've mentioned the importance of data in helping to solve some of these problems. How are you navigating this?
Yeah, so because we're camera and we're photos, data has always been like forefront, particularly with all the laws. It's always been a very important part. And we knew that in order to get people to take photos, we'd have to be very buttoned up. We've also got some very large clients in both the enterprise fashion space and also in the uniform sector. And that covers over in the military side. So you can imagine that we had to really get ourselves together early on. But so we've got images that are stored securely. They are encrypted at rest. We are GDPR compliant. We are CCPA compliant. I think many of us forget that actually it's not us that own the data, it's the consumer that owns the data. And so we've got process in place where a consumer can actually request either through us or directly through the brand to delete that data. But all photos are encrypted and they're stored at rest. And when a consumer goes up on a website for the virtual try-on technology, obviously, because we're actually putting that garment on you and it's the photo of you, right? So it's a photorealistic virtual try-on experience. That last photo that you have taken is what's going to come up, and it sticks on the website until your session is over. And people, once you scan yourself once, you don't need to do it again unless, of course, you're gaining weight
Big
or
changes.
losing weight.
I'd be scanning myself every 3 days around this time of year. Yeah. It's amazing when you talk about data. There's some really interesting additional benefits. We always talk about science of fit, how to utilize, data to make the best decisions for a company in building their fit. We lived years and years of vanity fit. Now it's coming back to bite us on our ass because there's fits all over the board. 0 doesn't mean 0. It means 10 at one company means 0 at another. And I think as we go more online, we need to embrace this consistency of fit and let science and data drive those decisions within the organization. And so your company actually, I'm sure, internally is having that dialogue about the importance of helping even at the beginning of product development dialogue about, hey, here's what the data says about the American consumer, what they fit, what their body shape looks like, ectomorphic, those type of things within demographics. That's super exciting to me.
Yeah, well, you're pulling out my heartstrings because that's why I got into this.
Yeah.
I love the term algorithmic retailing. And I think that the opportunities in merchandising over the next decade to use body data to really flip the model and be a much more consumer-centric industry where instead of creating products and hoping that consumers fit in them, we're actually creating products because we understand what the customer looks like. And, let's face it, the customer's in the driver's seat and has been now for a couple of years, and the fashion industry is trying to catch up with that, right? And there's a lot that needs to happen. You have to start with bodies, right? So we can already help a retailer do that. There's still, I'm not saying we're going to get to an, on-demand model in, 1 or 2 years, but I just got off a call with a couple of women that are just doing amazing things at the factory level and on demand. But certainly over the next 5 to 10 years, we will see a much larger subset of manufacturing going to on demand. And all that is a function of technology and automation. But I think that one of the largest opportunities where I believe that a ton of capital will be poured into over the next decade is going to be in merchandising, because there's been very, very little innovation in, how we go about thinking about designing products, merchandising, planning, grading, inventory optimization. Retailers are just sunk in inventories right now. So, there's a big push to cut back on inventories, and as a planner or merchant, you're like, how do I do that? Right.
That's right.
But, looking backwards to historical data in this world today, it does not have the same meaning as it did, 10, 15, 20 years ago. When we looked back at our historical data to try and help us understand what color pink, we should be putting out for spring next year, and what sizes, and, kind of how to cut. And all that has changed. And, I think understanding what your customers look like and being able to segment that, and, we do this already. So the challenge for 3D Look is really about how do we, create systems and automate that and make it really easy for the brand to be able dynamically to see this data and be able to shift and make changes in their production processes in real time.
That's super exciting.
Yeah, it is. You're giving us a glimpse a little bit into the future of the power of the data in this industry. What are some other attributes we can look forward to with this technology?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a pretty aggressive roadmap in 2023, which I'm very excited about. I am super interested in 3D, which is why, I'm here in the first place. And, with increases in, graphics power and, 5G becoming more pervasive and just what people are doing in 3D. I mean, kind of forget all the hype around metaverse for a minute, but for me, it's really around experiential e-commerce and what I like to call 3D commerce. But how are we innovating on these experiences just on shopping on websites and making them more immersive? And I look at it as kind of a stepping stone into kind of next gen 3D. I'm very interested in understanding kind of what the adoption will be to, AR glasses at the point at which, they are made out on the market in a consumer facing way. Whether Apple does that or not, they tend to be the leader in consumer facing innovation. So while AR glasses have been around and certainly being used in a B2B way, what does that mean in terms of shopping? If in fact there is an adoption there on the consumer side over the next several years. So I'm very excited about the future. Our photorealistic try-on experience right now literally puts a garment back on you. So it's really a representation of, what does this garment look like? Do I like the ruffles? Do I like the print? Do I like the color? Do I like the length? But what I'm very excited about is venturing in 2023 into true 3D. And, there's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of psychology that goes into that because you can't argue when you take a photo of yourself that it's you.
Yeah.
But, you could argue with your avatar, do I really look like that? And your avatar in real life needs to be a representation of you for fit. Very different than your avatar in the metaverse, which is somebody I hope to be or want to be, or,
Right.
So I think it's a super interesting problem to solve and a really interesting opportunity. We've got about 80% of our team is on the, computer vision and 3D side. So our R&D deep tech side and product side also, obviously. And we have some really smart people in-house. So I'm excited. I can't announce some of the things we're going to be doing soon, but very excited about 2023 and where that's going to take us.
Yeah, it was interesting. We were having conversations with one of our 3D partners, Browseware, and they were experimenting with the draping on actual human forms. And one of the things they were finding is in the harsh light of reality, they were actually having customers negatively impacted by the reality of what they look like. And so how it'll be interesting to know how the evolution of the marketing aspect, we have nice mood lighting at some retail stores, great music. So when you get in there, you might feel a little more sexy than in some harsh ultraviolet light. So how we manage that visualization will be an important evolution of that too.
And I think also understanding what is it that what's most important to the consumer? Is it the shareability? When we were doing beta testing, we saw that consumers were taking screenshots and sharing it with their friends. It didn't look perfect, right? It was beta, but it was cool to them because again, going back to something you said in the beginning, Brett, this is still, brand new for consumers. Their avatars in gaming are very different than their real life them.
Absolutely.
And, I think continued experimentation, conversations, surveying, beta testing. I give, Browseware is an amazing company. We have a lot of customers that, use Browseware and some of the other 3D design tools. But, one of the things that I think the fashion industry traditionally has not been great at is collaboration. Even within organizations, everything tended to be quite siloed, right?
Although I see that changing.
Right. And so, and it kind of is following a little bit of, what you might find in like Silicon Valley or other big tech hubs, right? Where there's a lot more collaboration within. And so, for us, partnership strategies, Browser is already a partner of ours, but partnership strategies as we enter into 2023 and throughout that year or throughout next year are going to be very important to us. There are so many people doing just really, really amazing things within the fashion industry that is just going to create amazing experiences for consumers over the next couple of years.
So let's get down to brass tacks real quick. We talk about your vision of the future where it's pervasive. Everyone will have 3D look on their retail site. Everyone's using them. The hard question is it built for all sizes of customers today? We've got customers in our organization that are small to large startups. Everyone could benefit from this. The future is that everyone's going to have it. What does that technology look like today to implement? Are we able to implement it for customers of all sizes? Is it approachable for everyone? What's that look like, and what's the future look like if it's not today?
Yeah, well, you have a lot packed in there. So it's
I do,
interesting.
sorry.
No, it's great. It's a great question. So, I always say fit doesn't, everybody's got a problem with fit. It doesn't discriminate.
Right.
We've got customers large and small. We have customers that sell female products and male products. And it's about, I guess it sways a little higher today on the women's side, but because we've got, quite a few companies in the uniform space, we tend to get a lot of male. Early on, we understood where our deficits were. And so, we made an investment after our Series A round into a scanning lab, which we used to, put people in and expand on data sets. So one thing early on that we had to expand on were really tall men. And then
I resemble that remark.
And then also plus size. We also use synthetic data. So our scanning lab enables us to actually use synthetic data to build and expand on training sets. So it's a process that is never ending and probably won't be. I'm not going to say that there aren't edge cases that, we need to take care of at some point. I mean, I don't think we probably have like basketball players that are, 7'5" in our database right now. We've always talked about kids too. We currently measure, I think it's 4'7" on up. But kids, because their bodies change so rapidly, is really a monster of its own. So we haven't ventured into that space yet. We've been asked to do maternity, which, if you can imagine, creating data sets on maternity is a big undertaking. So, I think you would see some of those types of things out of 3D look at a later stage. A much bigger capital round where we would really have to put a lot of focus and training back into those types of data sets. But today, we serve customers small and large. We've got a plugin for Shopify. I think there's a huge opportunity in the mid-market, which is where Gen Z is shopping.
That's correct.
Most all those companies that sit on Farfetch and Intermix and Moda, they are, a lot of them, 90% of them are on Shopify. So when I say small to mid-market, these are 20, 30, 40, 50, $100 million brands. And they are, this generation's version of what will become, 500 million plus brands. But having said that, the enterprise space is obviously, those logos are important. And we will be announcing a really big one of the largest ones in January. So I'm very excited about that. And we've developed an opportunity in just all of our conversations with big retailers and doing, smaller pilots over the years of understanding some of the impacts of trying to integrate with a startup technology company and having that turn into like a 6 to 8 month process and spending a lot of their engineers' time and money. So we've actually developed a tag manager pilot program that is not a deep integration, that enables us to actually get live with a, giant brand or retailer in about 4 to 6 weeks. So we're super excited about that. And we are expecting several launches within Q1 and Q2 as a result of that.
Well, thank you so much for shedding some light on the fact that the future is now, especially with regards to solving some of these key issues with retail fit. Congratulations on all of the successes that you've had. We're looking forward to hearing some of your big announcements in the future. We really appreciate you joining us today, Whitney.
Well, thank you both. It's a pleasure to be here. I always enjoy talking about the future of fit with manufacturers and retailers. So I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Bye, Whitney.
Don't forget to
Bye-bye.
subscribe and stay apprised of upcoming episodes of Clothing Culture.